it's Nikki in Niagara, coming to you from Niagara Falls, Canada. So here we are for a color and chat. I am going to be coloring out of Mythologica by, forgot his name, Richard Merritt. And while I color in this, I will be telling you the books that I read in August and doing a quick wrap-up for them. So I'm working on getting better at doing these, so hopefully this will be a bit smoother than last time, though I had some people say they really enjoyed it, so that's why I'm doing it again. So feedback is always appreciated, even if it's negative. That's the only way I can learn. So, Mythologica. And I am coloring this picture here. It is, let's see, it tells you what the creatures are here. That it's a European dragon. I'm using Prismacolors. Currently using this combination: PC 105 Cobalt Turquoise, PC 905 Aquamarine, PC 992 Light Aqua. And I'm going to be coloring these. They go here, kind of under there, then they come back out over here and go along there. And if I get that done, then we'll work on the underneath. Or maybe that part, who knows. Let's just get started. So, I read 18 books this month, and that is more like my average reading used to be back in the day. So that is 6 more than I read in July. So one of the problems that I'm going to have with doing this is that I have very light retention. Some books I just absolutely cannot remember, and so those I'll just go quickly on. And others I remember others clear as day, but yeah, so I'm going to start off with the first one, which is a thriller called, oh, and this month I've read more than just thriller, true crime, and horror. I've read some books that weren't those. A couple anyways. So the first one I read was One Step Too Far by Tina Seskis, which I believe is a standalone, and I gave it 4 stars. So I had to read I'll show you the picture of it. So, One Step Too Far by Tina Seskis is running away ever the answer. So, I had to read the synopsis to remember this. Going back to the first book of August, it was kind of hard to remember. But this is a thriller, and it's about a woman, I think her name's Elizabeth, but I can't remember, who one day grabs her things and walks out of her life. She is a happily married mother with 2 kids, I think. Oh no, I think she's got 2 boys and a girl, but she has some kids anyways. And she just walks out of her life to start a brand new one. Now, she's planned this. And so she planned the going away part. She didn't plan where she was going to go. So anyway, she ends up in this town and she gets a job. She was a stay-at-home mom in her previous life that she's just left. So she gets a job with an advertising firm, I believe, and she becomes an important employee there. She makes friends with, I think they end up being roommates, can't remember. So yeah, and we don't know why she's done this, and that is gradually given away throughout the course of the book. but everything is going fine, but then her memory of the past is bothering her, and she finds out that there are some things that just won't stay hidden about her past. So so that was really good. I enjoyed it, even if I can't remember it. Don't take my ability to remember books as them being good or not. So the next book I read is a nonfiction, Monster She Wrote. The women who pioneered horror and speculative fiction, by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson. So this is a nonfiction book which starts off with the 1600s and tells us about, I don't have the book handy, I think I took it downstairs, which tells us about horror and speculative fiction written by women from the 1600s up to the 21st century. I know it goes up to the 20th century. The last chapter kind of talks about modern writers, and it is really, really good. Lots of information is given about the artist's, the author's life, and then it gets into why her books are popular and why you should read them, and it mentions a few books here and there, and I just read through that like so fast. I was just taking in the information and enjoying it. A lot of the authors I'd heard of, but there was plenty that I hadn't, and it was really interesting reading. I know that I will be using that book as reference for probably the rest of my life. It's definitely a keeper. I got the hardcover edition because I like hardcovers in nonfiction. I knew that was going to be a keeper of a book. I just from reading the synopsis and the reviews of it, I knew I was going to like that book. So I highly recommend it if you like reading about books, you want a book about, you like books about books, and you're into horror or speculative fiction. Next one I read was Where the Crawdad Sings by Delia Owens. Now this one I didn't care too much for. I don't think it's any type of genre. It's just fiction, though I think it is marketed as a bit of a mystery, because there is a murder and one of the characters goes on trial for that murder, but that's far into the book, and it's not what the book is about. It's just about this girl who lives in a shack with her parents and, I don't know, five siblings, and the mother walks out one day. Just the girl watches her walk out. I think they live in the swamps, and she just walks down the road, and that's it. And she's done. And then gradually, as the other siblings are all quite a bit older than her, except for one, and they all gradually leave as well, and then it's just her and her father, and one day her father doesn't come home, and so she's 6 years old at this time, and she basically raises herself. Since living with her father, who is an alcoholic, she has gotten used to going to the store to get food and supplies and stuff for him, because he won't do it himself. And yeah, so then that's what the book is about. The people in the nearby town end up thinking of her as like, I forget the name they gave her, but I think it might have been Swamp Girl. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Swamp Girl was the name that they gave her. And so she becomes really, really interested in the flora and fauna in that area, and basically teaches herself the biology of it all. And then so the book just follows her life, and once she becomes 18, she becomes interested in falling in love, and so the book then features on that. And then we have our murder, and everybody thinks that the Swamp Girl has done it, and she ends up going to trial. So it's about her heartache with her two dealings with love. And you know, it's just you know, a story. And I mean, it was okay, but I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. I mean, I don't have to have books that be full of action and adventure. I have read plenty of books where nothing happens and it's just a great story. But I don't know, this just didn't do it for me. So that's a look at where the crawdad sings. And if that sounded good to you, then I am sure you will like it, because it has gotten a lot of, it's been a bestseller. So then the next book I read was The Murder of Madam X by Mark John McGuire. Now, Mark John McGuire is a YouTuber, and he has a channel on here called They Got Away with Murder, and this is his first book. And it's just like his show. He's a wonderful writer. He knows how to tell a tale, and since I know what he sounds like when he talks, I kind of like had that voice in my head as I read the book. So it's a true crime that took place. Oh, I can't remember the year, but it was cover. He drew that himself, and there's a couple of illustrations inside that he drew as well. So there it is, The Lime Slade Mystery, 1929. And it's about this woman who was at the movies with her friend, and they live in this very small community. It's got kind of like a bunch of houses on the road, and everybody knows everybody. There's, you know, a small amount of people living there, a village. And her friend, the house is next door to hers, and they get home, the friend goes into her house, and the lady goes into her house, but all of a sudden the whole village hears this earth-shattering scream, and then some moans. And the lady next door, she goes running to see what is the matter, and she finds her friend on the ground, stabbed repeatedly, and her husband laying, you know, hunched over her, trying to get her up and say, you know, what's happened to you, dear, what's happened to you? And so that's where it goes from there. Then we have the investigation, and first they think that it was a vagrant, because, you know, it must have been. And, you know, was it a robbery or stuff like that? But eventually suspicion starts to fall on the husband, because his reaction to things doesn't seem very right. You know, he's not behaving properly the way you would expect a grieving husband to act. The woman is taken to the hospital and dies the next day. or a couple of days after, I can't remember. So suspicion goes on to him, and at some points some people suspect the neighbor as well. And so the book, once it's told the backstory of everything that happened, the book follows the trial. And I really enjoy true crime that follows a trial, like from beginning to end. We're not just told, oh, there was a case, you know, one chapter telling us about the case, and then the next chapter about the outcome of it. But the rest of the book, anyways, is about the case, the trial, and it was really good. It was really well written. It's a very interesting crime, and yeah, definitely recommend that, especially to support a fellow YouTuber, and simply because it's really good. So the next book I read was The Space Between the Stars. Oh, I remember that. And I gave it a 3.5. First of all, it starts off by saying it's science fiction, and I guess it is, but it's not really all that science fiction because it takes place on Earth, and there's not any technological stuff. So anyways, what happens is, and this book was written somewhere like around 2018 or 2017, 2018. And so what happens is that there's a virus, and it kills off everybody on Earth, and because of the space travel, it has gotten to all the space colonies, and everybody dies, except of course there's going to be some survivors. And those survivors are, you know, doing different things, but our main character is a lady who left Earth, volunteered to leave Earth to be one of the people in colonizing the planet that she was on, and she's a veterinarian, I believe. And so anyway, she wants to make her way back to Earth. She'd had a boyfriend, and they had broken up before she came out here, and she thought she missed him, and they had always promised that if anything ever happened, they would meet at this beach near where they lived. And so she wants to go back there because she swears that he's going to be there waiting for her too. So that's her dream, and then the book is just all about she gets to Earth, she meets some people, we have this little group of people, and it's all about their journey from where they are, which is somewhere in the north, I believe, of the United States, and they're making their way down to a beach on either California or Florida, I can't remember. I'm going to say California. And so the whole book is about those characters, with Our Lady being the main character, and it's about their adventures and the other people that they meet, and you know, relations between the group members as they go on their journey to reach this beach where they're headed for. And then we have a bit of what happens after they get there. So this part is really hard here because I can see that there's some of this, but I think I'll have to wait until I've done that. So I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna have to turn my book. Well, let me move my pop out of the way. This is gonna need some editing. Okay, so working on it from this angle now. So anyways, I will show you a picture of that one. This book would be good for people who like dystopia, post-apocalyptic, apocalyptic, and as I said, it's not really that sci-fi. I've got some glare from the sun coming in the window, but I think you can see that there. Oh, you know what? That's this lamp. Let's turn that one off. There we go. So I remembered that one really well, but I only gave it a 3.5 stars. So it was good. And, you know, I mean, I think actually now I'm starting to like it better than when I actually read it. My memory of it is better. So the next one that I read was a true crime book, The Road Out of Hell. I'll show you what that one looks like. So this is The Road Out of Hell. It's about Sanford Clark and the true story of the Wineville murders by Anthony Flacco with Jerry Clark. Now Jerry Clark is the boy in this tale. So he helped with the writing of this the writing of this book. Of course, it was his story that was being told by the author. I always want to say artist. I'm used to talking about coloring. So he was kidnapped by his uncle. Well, not kidnapped, because his mother sent him to go live with his father. This is the beginning with his uncle. This is the beginning of the Depression. It's the 30s, in the Depression. His mother sends him out to live with his uncle because she's a negligent mother, and she just can't really be bothered with the boy because she wants to have a life of her own. There is a sister, and she's quite a few years older than the brother, and she actually moves out of the home after he leaves. So they think he's out there with his uncle working a chicken farm, but the uncle is a pedophile, and not only a pedophile, but a sadist, and he brutalizes the boy out there. So I'm not gonna go into anything other than saying that, and I do mean brutalize. And the boy is there for, I don't know, number of years, and the book is, I would say it's very graphic, and when you're writing true crime, there is a fine line between giving us enough information and giving us too much information. And I thought that this book gave us too much information, but then I had to think, well, the boy that this happened to is, you know, now a man, obviously an old man, and he is part of writing this book, so he knows how graphic it is, so he must have wanted it to be that way, or else, you know, he wouldn't have his name on the book. So there is that, but I do think it stepped over that line. But those parts aren't plenty. They you know, come and they go, and then it's over. But yeah, so it's just about that story, and about how his sister eventually wants to get in touch with him again, and the uncle won't let her, and he starts making up stories, and I think he says that the boy's not there, that he's gone somewhere else, and you know, anyways, I think it takes her over a year, but she finally does go out there, and it's because of her that the boy was rescued. And then it's about the aftermath of what happened to him. It's a really, really, really interesting story. If you can stomach the contents of it, it's worth a read too, to see how something like this could go on. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I think I gave it a 4. I don't ever really give true crime a 5, because I don't know, just because of what it is. So can't remember if I showed you the picture or not, so Here it is. Oh yeah, I did show it to you. So the next one that we're doing is a Korean book that was I read in translation, obviously. Now, when I read Korean books, they're always very strange, shall we say. So this book is called The Hole by Hai Young Pyun. I hope I said that right. And I've read another book by that art author. I didn't know I had until I was looking at the other books that I'm going to say that she wrote. And I had read another one of her books, and I quite enjoyed it, and it was really weird too. So what this is about is the book starts with a man and his wife getting in a car accident. The wife is killed, and he is burnt. I think he's a burn survivor. He's in the hospital for like a year before he can be moved to his home, but he's bedridden still, and he can't get up, and I think he's paralyzed from the... Oh, I think the only thing he can do, he can't move. I'm pretty sure that's it. And the only thing he can do is blink. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so the mother-in-law, she offers to bring him to her home. All this time that he's been at the hospital, she has visited him every single day. And so she brings him home, and she becomes his caretaker. Now, what he doesn't find out until the end is that while she's been looking after him, she has been digging a hole in the backyard. And the neighbors have been wondering about this hole. And so now the book is just about him being taken care of by the mother-in-law, who at some point starts becoming negligent of her duties as a caregiver. And we don't know anything about what's going on, but together with him at the end of the book we find out about why she is digging this hole. So it is a very strange book, but it is very good. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it. The next book is called True Crime Stories Volume 8 by Jack Rosewood. Now this is just a collection of short presentations of crime cases. I thought it wasn't going to be that good because I have read some compilations like that before. You know, they're self-published, and you know, they're not that good, and I expected this to be like that, but no, it wasn't. It was excellent. The writing was really, really good. It was comparable to Anne Rule's. No, not Anne Rule. Yes. No, I don't know if I'm thinking of the Marxist author or the true crime writer. Oh, I'm sure it's Anne Rule. I'll put the name down below if it's not Anne Rule. Is she the vampire writer? Oh, I don't know. I'm mixing up a whole bunch of Annes. But anyways, her name is down below. So yeah, it's really good book, and I got it as a Kindle daily deal. Let me look it up because... So I'm not too sure how much this is, but wait for it and other books in the series. I can't enlarge this one because I don't know. It's an Audible book, but that's what it looks like. And wait until it comes onto a Kindle deal, because then I'm pretty sure I got it for $1.99 or 99 cents. I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. But it was really good. I recommend it. The next book I read is The Dead House by Don Kurtagich. And that book is here. So this is my own book, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4.5, I think. I give out 5s very, very seldom. A book has to be totally blow my mind to get a 5 from me. So it's got a 4.5, and it is a yeah. I didn't know it was when I start. Oh yes, I did. I did know. And I kind of don't read yeah anymore. I went through a phase for like several years when all I ever read was yeah fantasy, and that I kind of, after that, I kind of just got, you know, sick and tired of reading yeah, and I want more grittier books, so I don't really read yeah anymore. But I liked this book because it is told through diary entries, letters, emails, video transcriptions. Here we have a video, and it's transcribed as to what happens, and all those kind of things. So I guess I can't remember what this type of book is, but I love books that are told in letters, and that's basically what this is. So it is about a girl who goes into the forest with her friends. I think there's 4 friends, and 3 of them come out. No, she comes out of the forest, but 3 of her friends are dead, and one of them has to go into the hospital. That's the story. Now, we find out that the girl has 2 personalities. During the day, she is, just let me get the names right here. During the day, she's Carly, and at night, she's Caitlin. Well, when she returns from the forest, she's only Caitlin. She's Caitlin during the day and during the night. And so she sees a psychiatrist. And as I said, the story is told through all those different types of letters and emails and diary entries, and those are Caitlin's diary entries. And so she has been put in a psychiatric facility, which she escapes from a couple of times. And yeah, so it's just the whole story of how Caitlin wants to get Carly back. But the psychiatrist says to her that Carly is the real person, and she is Carly. She just thinks she's Caitlin. So it can get a little strange trying to describe this to you. But the story's all about her and her friend. Well, all of this stuff happens before the forest. It also goes back and forth in time as well. We've got after being in the forest, or like the event that they call it. I think they call it the event. So there's time that a large portion of the book happens before that, and then the other part of the book happens after that. So we get our story leading up to the event, and we get the continuing story of Caitlin / Carly's mental health situation. It is awesome, awesome, awesome. I love books that take place in, I guess, psychiatric institutions, I guess we'll call them. I especially love old-fashioned ones, you know, where it's the insane asylum. But no, that's not this. It's modern. And yeah, so that's what it's about. And it looks like it's a chunkster, but it's not really. It reads really fast because of the format of it. So yeah, that one was fun. I really liked that. Now the next book I read was 14 by Peter Clines. And this one, I was just a random book I picked off of my Kindle. I had no idea what it was about. I just liked the cover. I mean, look at this cover. Look at that cover. Does that not make you want to read it? So I thought it was going to be horror. What it ended up being was science fiction for the last little bit. The first part of it was pretty much a normal story. Well, I guess it's a combination of science fiction and just a regular book. So if it's the type of book that if you don't like science fiction, you'll like this book. If you like horror, you'll really like this book. Yeah, I said if you don't like science fiction, you'll still like this book. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. And so anyways, this guy moves into a hotel, not a hotel, an apartment. And it's an old apartment in like New York or something like that. A big city anyways. And there's only a handful of other people who live there, and over time he gets to meet them. Now I just love books that take place in apartment buildings where it's about the inhabitants. And so one of the inhabitants has been there for 2 years, and she's been working on this thing where there's strange things about this house. One of them being that the elevator has never worked. It's on the bottom floor in the basement, and that's it. So this building has quite a few floors. So it's kind of hard going up and down the stairs all the time, but the elevator has never worked, and nobody's ever going to fix it. There's also a room up on the building. The building has a little patio area where people go to smoke and chat and have a drink or whatever. And there's a building up there that nobody is allowed to enter or even go near. If you go near it, the superintendent is after you. Like, what are you doing? What do you need? I will help you. Get away from this place. And there's also a room in the apartment building, apartment number 14, and it is the door in the picture. And it is locked. I believe it has 3 padlocks on it and a couple of bolt ones, and these are on the outside. And everybody, of course, kind of wonders about that building, that apartment. And that woman gets this guy into the mystery of this apartment building, and he ends up becoming obsessed with it. And he finds out some really freaky stuff. And one could actually call this cosmic horror, which I think suits it much better because it has a Lovecraftian aura about it and a Lovecraftian twist to it. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you will really like this. But if you just like books about, mysteries of a group of people who live in an apartment building, then I think you'll like this too. You won't mind the little bit of science fiction at the end. So really, really good book. Then the next one that I read was Hunting the Ultimate Kill, which was a true crime. And this is by Jack Rosewood again. Now this book I really can't remember. It's about 2 guys who were a murder or serial killer duo. They call them the Speed Freak Killers because they take meth and that's when they do their killings. So I'll just read this little bit on here because I really can't remember the book. I did enjoy it. I gave it a 4. But it says, Los Angeles, Bay Area, 2 men embarked on a vicious campaign in California's Central Valley that left at least 20 people dead. The 2 men, Wesley Shermantine and Lauren Herzog, this was a new case to me. I have never heard of those 2 before, so it was, I liked that it introduced me to this new case. Unfortunately, I can't remember it, but they were known as the Speed Freak Killers because they almost always were under the influence of the drug crystal methamphetamine meth. So these murders were occurred during the 80s and 90s, and they evolved from local toughs into one of the most efficiently dangerous serial killer pairs in American history. The Speed Freak Killers' odyssey of murder continued for nearly 20 years and in many ways continues on until the present. So open the book if you dare to learn about one of the most notorious serial killer tandems ever known. So yeah, that's all I can tell you about this book. The next book that I read was Frankenstein by Junji Ito. Now he is my absolute favorite horror manga artist, and my favorite manga. I don't know why I always want to say manga. So that's what this is manga, and I collect his books in hardcover, if most of them come out in hardcover. So what this is his retelling of Frankenstein at the beginning of the book, which it was okay. You know, his rendition of the monster is good, and as you can see, there's a bit of gore in here because Junji Ito is known for his body horror, so obviously he does pretty good. This is his Frankenstein right here. Let's see. There he gets his bandages off. Yeah, there we go. Isn't that an awesome picture? That's Junji Ito. Fantastic pen and ink work. So after Frankenstein, there are 6 short stories about a high school student who lives in a decaying mansion connected to a haunted parallel world. So those are all very good stories. I did enjoy the second half of those short stories more than I did the Frankenstein retelling, even though Frankenstein is one of my most favorite books ever. I've read it multiple times. I've read an annotated edition, and next time I read it, I'd like to read an annotated version by a different person than did the annotations. So I'm not going to say too much more about that because, you know, this is for only a certain audience. But if you like manga, horror, body horror, you will like Junji Ito, and I recommend anything he's written, whether I've read it or not. So yeah, that was great. I gave that a 5. And the next book that I read was, I'm getting to the ones that I own here. So that's a keeper. So this is The House Swap, and this is a domestic noir, what they're calling these books about couples, the thrillers that feature a couple and the thriller events that happen to them. So in this one, the woman is she gets a letter. I can't remember exactly the circumstances at the beginning. I just show you the cover. I can't remember the circumstances at the beginning Okay, so I'm done all this. So I think we're going to go into doing all this on here, and I want it to do that in red as well. So for red, my red combination is PC2925 Crimson Lake, PC926 Carmine Red, and PC1014 Deco Pink. So the House Swap by Rebecca Fleet is a thriller about a couple, and the woman, I can't remember the exact circumstances here, but she gets, whoops, jeez, almost had that fall on the floor. She gets a letter, and somehow she's offered a house swap, and they decide to take it because they haven't had a vacation in a long time. And so they go on, they do this house swap, and when they arrive at the house, like, it's in a beautiful area, I can't remember, it's in England, so, you know, it's one of those, I believe it's by a lake, and, or the ocean, the sea. So, yeah, when she gets to the house, it's very minimalistic. There's, like, nothing there. Well, I mean, there's furniture, but it's just very minimalistic. You couldn't tell a thing about the guy, and we are told that it's a guy that she's, you know, swapping houses with. Or I don't think she knows if it's just the guy or if they're a couple. Okay, you're gonna have to be quiet. You're bothering me. And then she starts to notice things that are like her. There's a couple of instances where she finds some flowers when they first arrive, and they are just like her. The flowers are her favorite flowers, and she finds them in the bathroom. And she walks into the living room one time, and music is on, and she says, "Oh," she says, that's my favorite song." And the husband says, "Yeah, well, I just went over, looked at the records over there, and this one was on the top." And I thought, wow, you know, what a coincidence. And so, you know, there's that. Her favorite song is on the top of the pile of records. And there's also a scent. There's a smell in the bathroom, and it ends up being her favorite scent that's in there. So she starts wondering whose house this is. And she has a secret that nobody knows. And it seems the person they've swapped with is someone who knows her, someone who knows the secret she's desperate to forget. And so, of course, she's haunted by this, and she spends all her time trying to figure out, well, she does figure out who it is to a degree, and she goes with that, and she tries to figure out, you know, like, what's he doing, what's he up to, why is this occurring, and she's worried that what she did is going to get out, that her secret is going to get out. Of course, we always know that if you've got a secret in a book, it's going to come out. So that was very good. I would read more of her books. I'm not going to keep that, though, because I don't keep that kind of book. I can't see myself rereading it. Now, the next one is 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. And this one is a new release. I got it as a new release. I bought it on Kindle. I think it was only $4.99 at the time. I pre-ordered it, and this book takes place during COVID. And the way that it's marketed is that these two people meet each other. They get along really well. And then all of a sudden, I think they live in Ireland. And then all of a sudden, it's COVID and the country is going into lockdown. And so they say to each other, you know, should we just have our relationship by you know, on the computer and you know, doing chats and video chats and that sort of stuff? Or what about us moving in together and getting to know each other that way? So that's what they do. They move in together. I can't remember if they move into his place or her place. And so they spend the next 56 days in that house, and at the end, one of them comes out. The other one is dead. And so the book tells the story of those 56 days and how the situation occurred at the end. So first of all, even though this book takes place during COVID, it's not about COVID. We get the beginning things, you know, at the beginning it talks about the toilet paper crisis, and it just talks a little bit about what's going on during lockdown. Doesn't get too deep or anything like that. It basically just gives us the setting of why these two would be cooped up together when they just met, you know. So then it's a straightforward thriller. I didn't find it very exciting. I think it was hyped more as a COVID book than it was, and I don't know. I'll say I've read much better thrillers. I don't even know if it was a thriller. The ending, like, it was just slow. And I don't, you know, it's not like I need to have a fast book, but it didn't do it for me. There's no reason I'm explaining why. It didn't do it for me, but it's a bestseller. It's become a bestseller, and everybody's reading it. So if you think that's your thing, then go ahead. Don't let my not liking it be any reason for you not to. Now, the next book I read was called A Checklist for Murder, and I'm gonna have to find this. So, and this one is by Anthony, what's his name? Anthony Flacco. A Checklist for Murder. So I'll show you that. This is the true story of Robert John Piernock. Now, I'm not remembering this. So this is an investigation discovery TV series. And let's see if I can remember what this is about. I read this recently. Robert Piernock appeared to have the ideal life, working as a pyrotechnics engineer and computer expert and coming home to his wife and daughter. Piernock projected the American dream. Even when he and his wife separated, it seemed amicable, just a small bump for the well-to-do family. But there was madness in his house. In private, Piernock was violent, subtly manipulative, and bordering on psychotic. But the horrifying details of his home life would only come to light after Piernock finally lost all control. Oh, so yes, he kills his wife and daughter by making them he force feeds them, he ties them up, he beats them brutally, he force feeds them alcohol, and then he puts them behind the wheel of a car and pushes it down a cliff or something. Anyways, his daughter survives. And so we get all that, and then the rest of the book is about the trial and what happens. Really, really good. So this was written by the same guy who wrote the other book that I read at the beginning of the month, The Road Out of Hell. So he's a person to look out for. I really enjoyed that. Now the next book I read is The Murder Farm. Oh yeah, I didn't like this at all. The Murder Farm. It is basically, it takes, just a minute. I can never remember the name because it's a long name. Now, does it even say in the... So, let's see. I think somebody says it in the review. So I can't remember the name of the family, but back in the 30s there was this family. A family got murdered, and neighbors started to wonder why their farm, like why nobody was working the farm, like what was going on. The farm was quiet and the house was quiet. Where was this family? And they were all found in the barn. They had all been lined up in the barn, all the family members, including the two servant girls, I think, or just one servant girl. So this is a real story, I'm telling you, that happened in the 30s. So this book, The Murder Farm, by Andrea Maria Schenkel, is basically that story, fictionalized. And it takes the fiction book, The Murder Farm that I'm talking about here, takes place in the 50s, and then it's basically the same story. The family is found murdered in their barn, and blah blah blah. So it just goes over. It's a mystery thriller thing, but I didn't really find it very exciting. I only gave it a 2, and that's because I read it. I didn't DNF it, so it got a couple of points. The next book is called A Poisoned Mind, and I need to see this book to remember what it is. Mind, there we go. Oh, this was really good. This is a short. Well, let's go look at the paper. This is a short book, and that's the cover. So this was on my Kindle, and I had absolutely no idea what it was about, whether it was true fiction or fiction, but that cover and title made me go, okay, we're going to read this one now. So it was fiction. And I remember really liking this. I can't remember the details of the story. Jonathan Brown knows the voice in his head. It belongs to his deadly enemy, but he never expected the voice to take him over, both mentally and physically. So this is horror. This supernatural force hijacks his body, takes it to his top secret government office, and spills blood. With a helpless battle within, Jonathan must get control and escape from his own team before they execute him. Will a life in exile be his only choice, or will all the exiles once again claim another victim? So I think this is based on another book that he wrote, and this is kind of like one of those in-betweenies that authors write. So you don't need to have read the other book, because I hadn't. I didn't even know it existed or anything. But yeah, so this guy is overtaken by this force, and he's battling with it within his body, and of course he's like murdering people and stuff. I can't remember the details of the book for some reason. I mean, I read it not too long ago, and it's just not, oh, I did this in the wrong color. Man, it's just not coming back to me. So we'll just go with that. Now this minute, we're not at the last one. I got a couple more. This one, I read The Sacrifice by Alec Crusoe, and this is another one I can't remember. I gave it a 4, so I must have liked it. London, England, Dr. Ted Conway has committed suicide, a case that should be easily closed. After a forced break, Detective Inspector Rai Yoshima is thrust back into work overseeing the suicide of Dr. Conway, only to discover that things with this case is not what it seems to be. Trying to determine the unforeseeable truths from hidden lies, clues start finding their way together. As the case begins to unravel, it forces Yoshima into a whirlwind of discoveries, sending her to Cologne, Germany. So it doesn't tell us too much about it, but it was a good read. I remember liking it quite well, but the story's not coming back to me. Like when I read a page in here, I know I've read it before, but it doesn't make me remember the stories. Is anybody else like that, or is it just me? Like, do I have some sort of weird memory that doesn't work very well? Maybe it has to do with fibro. So I read another manga. Manga. So this is 3 volumes in one, so it's the complete collection. It's called The Dreaming, and it's by Queenie Chan, and it is a girls' boarding school story where strange events go on. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you too much about it because, I mean, it's a girls' boarding school ghost story. That kind of tells you what it's about. The illustrations are lovely. You see, this is also printed the English way. So this is an older book because they wouldn't dare do that now. They used to back in the day, and people really complained about it. But so you can see it has really nice illustration, and it is a really good book. So I don't know if this is still available because it's by Tokyo Pop. Is it Tokyo Pop? No. Oh yeah, it is. It's Tokyo Pop, and I don't believe they're in business anymore. Or did somebody buy them a few years back? Not too sure. But if you can find a secondhand copy of that, definitely pick it up if you're into manga, because it's a good book. So the last book that I read is not going to be for everyone. I really enjoyed, if enjoy can be the word, it is called Come to See the Riverman, and it's by Christopher Triana. So I'll just put that in so you can see the cover. Oh, it's not come, it's gone. Gone to see the Riverman. There's your cover. That's pretty good for the story. So this is horror, and it's very, very disturbing. Now it isn't about all sorts of gruesome deaths, but I guess it's not a long book either, so I can't really tell you too much of the story. But it's about a woman who writes to a serial killer. and she finds that she has fallen in love with him. Yeah, I know. One of those. But no, she's not like that, actually. It's not like what you would expect one of those people to be like. And so throughout the course of the book, we find out, just her motivations, like why she is the way she is. She has a massive secret in her background that she can't tell anybody. She's never told a single living soul what she did in the past. And so it's about that. We don't find out until the end, or near the end. But she tells this serial killer about what she did. And so that's one of the things that makes her think that she's fallen in love with him. And then he asks her to do something. And it's to prove that he can trust her. And so she sets off to do this thing, which she thinks is just a simple thing, to go pick up a key and give it to the riverman. So she comes to this place and she tries to figure out who the riverman is, and she sets off to find this key. Well, then this becomes the most disturbing, horrific, brutal journey that you could imagine. So if you like intense horror, this, I wouldn't even recommend this book, because you don't know whether somebody can take this book. I know that's probably making you say, okay, I need to read that, because that's what happened to me. I saw a couple of people review it on, or no, I don't know if they were reviewing it. No, they weren't reviewing it. It was on their TBRs. And no, one of them reviewed it. That's it. And they said the same thing, or, that it's not a book that you recommend to people because of, the reason I just said. And of course that made me go, okay, I need to read it. And I'll have to say it was disturbing, very, very disturbing. And it takes a lot to disturb me, because, I'm like really into all these, murder, my husband calls my murder shows and my murder books. Are you reading one of those murder books again? So yeah, it was really good though. I'm glad I read it, and I'm gonna look at his other books and try them out too. I think he's only written one other book, and it's a novella. So I'm definitely going to read that. And that's everything that I read in that rambly mess. I hope that I was able to impart some sort of information to you. Obviously, I will have done quite a bit of editing by the time you see this. Oh dear. So anyways, down below, let me know what you think of the books. Should I keep doing them and get better at them? I think I'm going to take notes for next week so that I'm basically giving crib notes to myself so that I remember what the books are about. And please, please let me know if you have the memory problem of like reading a book, you start your next book, and you totally forget what the last book was about. I'd like to know if other people experience that or if it's just me. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself here, and in the meantime,